Your soul remembers what your mind has quietly set aside. And in this very moment, as these words reach you, something deeper inside begins to stir. Not something new, but something ancient being reawakened, an awareness that has existed far beyond this single lifetime. There was a moment when your eyes met theirs, a moment that felt strange in its intensity, as if the entire world briefly paused. Time didn't behave normally. Something inside you recognized something it could not logically explain. It was not a simple meeting, it felt like remembering. This was not randomness or coincidence. It carried the feeling of something arranged long before you arrived here, as if written into the fabric of existence itself before either of you entered this life. In that instant, something in you responded instantly, without waiting for thought, analysis, or reason. The recognition was overwhelming in a quiet, undeniable way. A deep, inner knowing rose up that bypassed logic completely. Your rational mind may have tried to make sense of it afterward, but your soul already understood. It knew this presence. It had known it before names, before bodies, before this lifetime took shape. What you felt was not created in that moment. It was uncovered. A connection not formed, but remembered. Something that had been resting beneath layers of experience, waiting for awareness to return. And perhaps this is why these words find you now, in a space that feels uncertain, heavy, or in between what once was and what has not yet become. It may feel like chance, like scrolling, like accident, but something within you knows it is not that simple. There are moments in life that feel guided, as if unseen threads are quietly leading you towards something you are finally ready to understand. Not everything arrives randomly, especially when it concerns something the soul already recognizes. What you are carrying may feel deeply personal, yet also strangely universal. The weight, the confusion, the ache of connection and distance, it is not yours alone. It echoes something many souls encounter when a bond touches a depth that ordinary relationships never reach. Your chest may still carry the memory of that first encounter. The way their presence shifted something inside you that you could not explain. The way their eyes felt familiar in a way that bypassed language. Something unspoken, yet unmistakably felt. This is where the idea Carl Jung explored becomes relevant. The concept of synchronicity. Meaningful events that are not linked by cause and effect, but by significance. Moments that feel arranged rather than random. Your meeting carried that quality, as if two paths aligned at a precise inner timing rather than a physical one. What connected you was never just personality or attraction. It felt deeper than preference or compatibility. It felt like recognition between frequencies, something aligning at a level beneath thought, beneath identity. As if two inner patterns briefly matched and revealed something already shared at a deeper level of being. Even in silence, even in distance, something of that connection still seems to remain. Not as constant physical presence, but as an internal awareness that does not fully disappear. A sense that cannot easily be erased, no matter how much time or space passes. This is because what was activated was not surface emotion. It was a deeper imprint of recognition that does not dissolve easily. Your mind may question it, your heart may struggle with it, yet something within continues to remember. And in this moment, there is a subtle invitation within all of this, to trust that what you experienced had meaning beyond what the surface level can explain. The intensity you felt was not meaningless. It was not ordinary. Ordinary experiences do not rearrange your inner world in this way. Such encounters often initiate transformation. They bring forward parts of you that were previously hidden, not through comfort, but through activation. And what feels like emotional disruption is often something deeper being stirred into awareness. There is also something else that begins to unfold in these kinds of connections. They often act as mirrors, not reflecting who you pretend to be, but reflecting what has been unacknowledged within you. The unprocessed parts, the unseen emotional layers, the aspects of self that were never fully integrated. This mirroring is rarely comfortable. It can feel confronting, even destabilizing, because it removes the illusion of control. It shows not only love or longing, but also fear, insecurity, attachment, and unhealed emotional patterns that surface through intensity. In many cases, separation becomes part of this unfolding. Not as punishment and not as emotional rejection, but as space. Space where the internal process can continue without constant external activation. When connection is physically present, attention often remains focused outward. When separation occurs, attention is redirected inward. This inward turning is where deeper psychological and emotional integration begins. Carl Jung referred to this as the process of shadow integration, the meeting and acceptance of the parts of ourselves that were rejected, denied, or hidden because they felt too painful, too vulnerable, or too complex to face directly. When a bond reaches this depth, it often activates that shadow material. It brings forward emotional patterns that were previously dormant. And without distance, the intensity of projection can prevent true inner work from happening. Separation then becomes a kind of forced stillness, a pause that redirects energy back toward the self, not to diminish the connection, but to allow individual transformation that makes wholeness possible. This process can feel painful because it disrupts attachment patterns, it removes familiar emotional anchors, and creates a space where identity itself begins to shift. What once felt stable may begin to dissolve, making room for something more integrated to emerge. Jung also described individuation, the process of becoming psychologically whole by integrating both conscious and unconscious aspects of the self. In deeply intense bonds, this process can feel accelerated, as if the presence of the other has triggered rapid inner development that cannot be ignored. What often surfaces in their absence is not only longing for them, but also confrontation with oneself. The emotional activation they triggered does not disappear with distance. Instead, it turns inward, asking to be understood, processed, and integrated. This is why the experience can feel overwhelming. It is not simply missing someone. It is being confronted with everything that connection awakened within you, your desires, your fears, your attachments, and your unmet emotional needs. From a deeper perspective, this is not cruelty. It is reorganization, a restructuring of inner emotional foundations so that wholeness is not dependent on external presence. The aim is not dependency, but integration. In many of these dynamics, patterns of pursuit and withdrawal can emerge. One person may move closer while the other steps back. This is often described in human terms as chasing and running, but at a deeper level, it reflects emotional intensity meeting unprocessed fear. One energy moves toward connection because it feels deeply significant and meaningful. The other pulls away not because there is no feeling, but because the intensity activates internal overwhelm or fear of vulnerability. Both responses are rooted in emotional and psychological conditioning rather than simple choice. Neither role is superior. Both are expressions of internal processes being activated by the depth of the connection. One reflects longing for union, the other reflects protection from emotional intensity. Over time, these roles are not fixed. They can shift as awareness and healing develop. The one who once distanced may eventually confront what was avoided. The one who once pursued may eventually return to themselves and release attachment to outcome. And in that shift, the dynamic itself transforms. What remains at the core is not the behavior, but the underlying process of growth. Each person is being brought into closer contact with themselves through the intensity of what has been activated between them. And beneath all of it, something quieter remains. A recognition that what was experienced was not ordinary, not superficial, and not easily erased. It left an imprint that continues to shape inner awareness long after the moment has passed. Carl Jung explored the idea that when something is pushed to its extreme, it eventually turns into its opposite. What begins as avoidance slowly transforms into pursuit, and what begins as pursuit eventually collapses into withdrawal. This inner reversal is not random. It is part of a natural psychological rhythm that creates balance through contrast. In connections that feel deeply intense, this movement often becomes more visible. The one who once distances themselves may eventually feel an internal pull back toward what they avoided, and the one who once pursued may eventually reach a point of emotional exhaustion where detachment becomes the only way forward. What looks like inconsistency is often the psyche moving through necessary stages of integration. This is not simply a relationship pattern. From a deeper perspective, it can feel like a process designed to stretch both individuals beyond their original emotional limits. The pressure created by this push and pull forces inner material to surface: wounds, fears, beliefs, and unresolved emotional imprints that would otherwise remain hidden. When seen only through the surface level, it can appear as confusion or dysfunction. But when viewed more deeply, it can also be understood as a powerful psychological and spiritual catalyst. The intensity is not proof of failure. It is often what activates transformation in both people involved. The one who pulls away is not always acting from indifference. More often, there is an internal conflict taking place. A part of them feels the depth of connection and is drawn toward it, while another part experiences fear in response to that same depth. This fear is not always conscious. It can emerge as resistance, silence, or distance without clear explanation. At the surface, they may seem to be running from the other person, but internally what they are often reacting to is their own reflection. The connection becomes a mirror that reveals parts of themselves they have not fully accepted: emotional wounds, defensive patterns, vulnerabilities they have long kept buried. Being truly seen in this way can feel overwhelming. It removes the comfort of carefully maintained identity structures. It exposes emotional truths that the ego is not always prepared to face directly. And when that happens, withdrawal can feel like the safest option available. This is why separation often enters these dynamics, not as punishment, but as psychological space. Space where the intensity of emotional activation can settle enough for inner processing to occur without constant external stimulation. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow becomes relevant here. The idea that every person carries unconscious aspects of themselves that have been rejected or denied. In deeply activating connections, these shadow aspects often rise to the surface. The relationship becomes the trigger point that reveals what has been unintegrated. Without distance, attention can remain focused on the other person rather than the self. But separation redirects awareness inward. It forces a confrontation with emotional patterns that were previously projected outward. In this way, the absence of the other becomes part of the inner work itself. This process is rarely comfortable. It disrupts emotional dependence and challenges the identity structures built around attachment. What once felt stable begins to shift, not to destroy the person, but to reorganize them at a deeper level. Jung also described individuation as the process of becoming psychologically whole by integrating both conscious awareness and unconscious material. In highly intense emotional bonds, this process can feel accelerated, as though the connection itself is forcing rapid inner development. What is being asked in this phase is not just emotional endurance, but self-reclamation, the return of energy that was previously invested outwardly back into the self, the rebuilding of internal stability that is not dependent on external presence. This is also where patterns of pursuit and withdrawal often appear. One person moves closer because the connection feels significant and meaningful. The other steps back because the emotional intensity activates fear or overwhelm. These responses are not simply choices. They are often instinctive reactions shaped by past emotional experiences. The one who pursues is often driven by recognition. Something in the connection feels undeniable, as if it carries meaning that cannot be ignored. The one who withdraws is often driven by protection. The system interprets depth as potential loss of control, and so distance becomes a form of emotional safety. Neither response is inherently right or wrong. Both are expressions of unprocessed emotional material being activated by the same bond. One reveals longing, the other reveals fear. Both reveal areas that are being brought into awareness for healing. Over time, these roles are not fixed. They can shift as inner awareness develops. The one who once withdrew may begin to face what they were avoiding. The one who once pursued may begin to release attachment to outcome and return to their own center. When this happens, the dynamic itself begins to transform. At a deeper level, what is unfolding is not simply about two people moving toward or away from each other. It is about two internal systems being activated simultaneously, each being pushed toward greater self-understanding through the presence of the other. From this perspective, the experience becomes less about loss or separation and more about inner restructuring. The emotional pain is not meaningless. It is part of a process that exposes what needs to be healed, integrated, and understood. What often feels like distance is also what creates the conditions for reflection. Without it, the emotional intensity may remain entangled in reaction. With it, the psyche is given space to process, reorganize, and gradually move toward balance. This is why these experiences often feel so life-altering. They do not simply touch emotion, they disrupt identity. They bring unconscious material into awareness, challenge long-held beliefs about love and self-worth, and force a deeper confrontation with inner reality. And while the human experience of this can feel overwhelming, something deeper is unfolding beneath it, a gradual movement toward wholeness, where both individuals are being shaped by the very intensity that once felt unbearable. What remains constant throughout all of this is change itself. Not sudden or linear, but cyclical, moving through expansion, contraction, distance, and return. And within that movement, both individuals are being guided, not toward dependency, but toward a more integrated sense of self. Dreams of your twin are not random fragments of the mind, but deeply meaningful experiences that often feel like meetings in a space beyond ordinary awareness. In those moments of sleep, something within you seems to move beyond the limits of daily life, entering a state where connection is no longer restricted by distance, time, circumstance, or physical presence. Many people describe these dreams as different from ordinary dreams. They carry a unique emotional intensity, a sense of clarity, and an atmosphere that feels unusually real. Rather than feeling like disconnected images or random mental activity, they often feel like genuine encounters. You may wake with a strong sense that something important happened, even if you cannot fully explain it. The emotions remain vivid, the conversations linger in your memory, and the feeling of connection stays with you long after your eyes open. It can seem as though another layer of interaction is unfolding within these experiences. In that inner space, emotions are exchanged without effort. Unresolved feelings rise to the surface. Questions that have remained unanswered during waking life suddenly feel understood. Sometimes words are spoken, other times there is no dialogue at all, yet the meaning feels completely clear. Some dreams remain vivid for days or even years. You remember the setting, the emotions, the expressions, and the sense of presence. They feel so real that waking up creates a temporary feeling of loss, as though you have been pulled away from something important. Other dreams disappear quickly from conscious memory, yet they still leave behind a powerful emotional residue. You may not remember the details, but you carry the feeling throughout the day. A sense of peace, longing, comfort, sadness, hope, or certainty remains even after the images themselves have faded. Within this perspective, these experiences are often understood as a deeper form of communication, one that bypasses ordinary language and operates through emotion, intuition, and symbolic understanding. It is sometimes described as telepathic connection, not necessarily in a supernatural sense, but as an extension of profound emotional attunement between two people who have formed an unusually significant bond. When someone becomes deeply important to you, your psychological system becomes highly sensitive to them. Their presence, absence, mood, and behavior can affect your emotional state in ways that feel almost automatic. You think about them unexpectedly, and shortly afterward, they contact you. You suddenly experience a shift in emotion, and later discover they were going through something difficult at the same time. You feel compelled to reach out, only to find they were thinking about you as well. Experiences like these often feel too meaningful to dismiss entirely as coincidence. They create the impression that some invisible thread continues to connect two people even when they are physically apart. Whether this thread is understood spiritually, emotionally, or psychologically depends largely on the lens through which a person views reality. Carl Jung explored similar territory through his concept of synchronicity. He described synchronicity as meaningful coincidence, events that appear unrelated through normal cause and effect explanations, but feel deeply connected through meaning. According to Jung, what makes a synchronicity important is not the event itself, but the significance attached to it by the individual experiencing it. In emotionally intense bonds, especially those marked by longing, separation, uncertainty, or transformation, the mind becomes exceptionally attentive to meaningful patterns. Songs suddenly seem to contain personal messages. Certain numbers appear repeatedly. Specific names, symbols, locations, or phrases show up at unexpected moments. These experiences often create the impression that reality itself is participating in the emotional process. From a psychological perspective, there are understandable reasons why this occurs. The human brain is a powerful pattern recognition system. When someone occupies a central place in your emotional world, your attention naturally becomes oriented toward anything connected to them. The mind begins filtering reality through that emotional focus, making related information appear more noticeable and more meaningful than before. This does not mean the experience is imaginary. It means the emotional significance attached to the relationship has changed the way perception operates. The brain becomes highly efficient at identifying anything associated with that person because doing so feels emotionally relevant. At the same time, emotional longing creates a desire for meaning. Human beings naturally seek coherence during periods of uncertainty. When closure is absent, the mind often turns towards symbols, patterns, dreams, and intuition as ways of processing unresolved feelings. What might otherwise appear ordinary can begin to feel emotionally charged because it has become connected to an important inner narrative. Some people interpret these experiences as evidence of an energetic bond that continues beyond physical separation. Others see them as expressions of the subconscious mind working through attachment and emotional significance. Interestingly, both interpretations acknowledge the same fundamental reality. The experience itself feels real, powerful, and transformative. Modern discussions sometimes reference concepts from quantum physics, particularly the idea of entanglement. In science, entanglement describes a specific relationship between particles that exhibit correlated behavior under certain conditions. While this phenomenon should not be directly applied to human relationships, many people use it metaphorically to describe the feeling of remaining connected to someone despite physical distance. As a symbol, the comparison resonates because it captures something many individuals experience emotionally. Even after separation, a person's influence often remains active within the psyche. Their voice, habits, reactions, and emotional presence continue to exist internally. The mind has spent so much time incorporating them into its understanding of reality that their absence does not immediately remove their psychological presence. This is where dreams become particularly important. Dreams serve as one of the primary ways the unconscious mind processes emotion. During sleep, the brain reorganizes experiences, integrates memories, explores possibilities, and works through unresolved emotional material. Because emotionally significant people occupy such a central role within this process, they frequently appear in dreams. These dreams are often more intense because they carry emotional energy that has not yet been fully integrated. Grief, longing, hope, regret, love, uncertainty, and attachment all seek expression. The unconscious mind uses symbols, stories, and familiar faces to communicate what conscious awareness may still be struggling to understand. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious adds another fascinating dimension. He proposed that beneath personal experience lies a deeper layer of the psyche shared by all humanity. Within this layer exist archetypes, universal patterns, and symbolic structures that shape human experience. Relationships that profoundly affect us often activate these archetypal forces, making them feel larger than ordinary life. This can explain why some connections feel destined, transformative, or impossible to forget. The relationship becomes linked not only to the individual involved, but also to deeper psychological themes such as union, separation, loss, transformation, healing, and self-discovery. The experience begins to operate on both a personal and symbolic level simultaneously. What is important to recognize is that regardless of interpretation, these experiences are genuine in terms of their emotional impact. They influence thoughts, moods, decisions, perceptions, and overall well-being. Even when nothing is happening externally, the internal experience continues shaping reality from within. During periods of separation, synchronicities often appear more frequently because the emotional system remains activated. It continues searching for relevance, meaning, and connection. In the absence of direct contact, the mind becomes increasingly attentive to anything that resembles a bridge between inner experience and external reality. A song lyric suddenly feels personal. A familiar scent triggers a vivid memory. A random conversation contains words that seem directly relevant to your situation. A recurring number catches your attention repeatedly. Whether these experiences are viewed as spiritual signs, psychological projections, or meaningful coincidences, they reveal something important about the depth of the emotional imprint that remains. That imprint becomes part of your inner world. It influences how you interpret events, remember the past, imagine the future, and understand yourself. The bond continues generating reflection and emotional response long after physical interaction has ceased. Over time, however, something begins to change. Emotional integration gradually takes place. The intensity of dreams often softens. Synchronicities lose some of their urgency. The emotional charge attached to memories becomes less overwhelming. What once felt like constant longing slowly transforms into understanding. This does not mean the connection loses meaning. Rather, its meaning evolves. The relationship becomes woven into your personal story instead of dominating your present experience. The lessons remain, the growth remains, the memories remain. But the emotional energy surrounding them becomes more balanced and integrated. Eventually, what once felt like external messages may become recognized as reflections of an important inner journey. The dreams, symbols, patterns, and moments of connection reveal not only something about another person, but also something about yourself. They illuminate your capacity for love, attachment, resilience, imagination, and emotional depth. And perhaps that is the deeper purpose behind these experiences. Whether they originate from psychology, spirituality, symbolism, or some combination of all three, they invite you to explore the hidden dimensions of your inner world. They encourage reflection, self-awareness, and growth. The bond may have begun with another person, but its lasting impact often becomes a journey of understanding yourself. Through dreams, memories, synchronicities, and emotional reflection, you gradually discover not only what the connection meant, but also what it awakened within you. And that understanding remains long after the dreams have faded, carrying forward as wisdom, insight, and a deeper appreciation for the mysterious ways human beings experience connection.